I ran into some translation trouble the other day. Chapter 5 of Dream of the Red Chamber is no joke. It's filled with poems, and it takes quite a while if you want to actually understand what they mean. Once you get through them, though, you feel like it's smooth sailing. So I got to this part where Jia Baoyu gets away from the singing about the fates of all the girls. The goddess who unveils illusion takes him to another very sensual bedroom. She then starts to lecture him on the shallowness of male sexuality. And then you get to this phrase. It's phrases like that drive translators nuts, and it's stuff like this that scares people away from Dream of the Red Chamber. It's a great book, actually, but there are these literary references in this book that are really challenging to piece apart. So let me set the stage for you. Okay, in this part right here, the goddess is talking about men who claim to admire the beauty of women without lust. And here they claim to have a purely emotional connection with women without having any lust. She concludes that men like this are simply using nice-sounding words to cover up their faults and their shame. Now that's the easy part. Next comes the hard part. This phrase reads like something out of a philosophy book. To be fond of women is lustful, and to understand a woman's inner emotional world is even more lustful. Note here the presence of the word qing, which shows up again and again in Dream of the Red Chamber. This is actually the key to understanding the novel, and it's the sort of thing that drives translators nuts. Qing can mean a whole lot of different things. Most people who translate this book into English make it mean love, passion, romance, or something similar. However, if you read the book carefully, you'll realize that qing really has to mean more than just that. It can't just be about romance, like the book itself isn't really a book about sex. But before we dig into that, we really need to look at this next line. Okay, this is the line that really drives translators nuts. 是以无上智慧 云雨之欢 皆由伎乐起色 复恋其情所致 Let's break this apart a little bit. 是以 means therefore, because of this, or thus. And now we run into 无上智慧 云雨之欢, which is really the key to this line. It's an 8-character literary reference that you either get or you don't get. Dream of the Red Chamber is actually filled with these kind of references. It's easy to miss them, actually. The key is to read slowly, to look for anything that doesn't make sense, and then to stop and demand an answer instead of just skipping over it. So let's see where this particular phrase comes from. Earlier in the same chapter, we saw this somewhat cryptic poem. The key is this line here. 终究是云山高堂，水和湘江. Now you're probably wondering what in the world Yunsan Gaotang and Shui He Xiangjiang mean. Shui He Xiangjiang literally means the Xiang River runs dry. The Xiang River is in Hunan province and was part of the ancient state of Chu. There's an old legend about the Emperor Shun who had 2 concubines who apparently really loved him. When he died, they went over to the Xiang River to cry. Their tears turned into blood, I'm not kidding, that's how the legend goes, and they threw themselves into the river and drowned. The legend goes on to say that the bamboo of that region was spotted with red because of their bloody tears. Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. Anyway, when the poem talks about the Xiang River running dry, it's a reference to this outpouring of emotion at the death of somebody you love. But what about the other phrase? Yunsan Gaotang is a direct reference to another ancient story, one that most of us in the West have never heard of. It's a story written by the scholar of the Warring States era named Song Yu. Song Yu met with King Xiang of Chu on top of a place called Yun Mengzhi Tai, or the Cloud Dream Terrace. Yeah, all of these places have strange Taoist names. Anyway, they gazed over at the Gaotang Shrine, which is where that name Gaotang comes from. After admiring the clouds and the mist, the king asked Song Yu what the mist was called. Song Yu told him that it was called Chao Yun, or morning cloud, and the king wanted to know why. Song Yu then told him a story about an ancient king who had also visited Gaotang. That king fell asleep while he was there and had a dream about a girl from Wu Mountain, or Wushan Zhinyu, as it says here. In his dream, this girl shared a pillow with him, and you know what that means. I guess they were kind of bashful when it came to talking about this stuff, but you know, in modern society, we're kind of the same way as well. Anyway, she had to leave him since he was going to wake up anyway, and then he asked her for her name. She said that her name in the morning was Chao Yun, or morning cloud, and in the evening it was Xing Yu, or wandering rain. So if you go back to that poetic line that we saw earlier, you can see that it says Yun San Gaotang, or that the clouds over Gaotang scatter. That is a direct reference to this story. That's the part where the king wakes up from his nap and loses the girl of his dreams forever. So is this a sexual reference? Well, kind of, but it really is more of an emotional reference. This is that feeling of yearning in the king's heart that is the focus of this story, not just the beauty of the girl. That's the key here, by the way, and most people miss it. And that is why the goddess uses the exact same story when she's talking with Jia Baoyu. Okay, let's go back to that ugly 8-line phrase again. Wu shan zhi hui, yun yu zhi huan. Wu shan zhi hui means that the ancient king meeting up with the daughter of Wu Mountain in his dream. Yun yu zhi huan is the joyful time that the king had with that girl on his pillow, for lack of a better term. And in ancient Chinese literature, yun yu tends to be a euphemism for sexual activity. I guess it's kind of like saying the birds and the bees in English, except of course most of us don't really do much research into where that particular phrase comes from. In Chinese, this sort of phrase is really rich with meaning because of the story behind it. And if you learn Chinese as a foreign language, this is the reason why your teacher will insist that you learn the stories that go along with the phrases. Anyway, we need to look at that phrase in context, right? So this phrase here, this literary reference, is about the male sexual desire for women. All of this is because of men delighting in the beauty of women. Additionally, it's because men yearn for the heart of women. Notice that what men are actually yearning for again is qing, so there's that word again. It's hard to translate. She's not really saying that men are after romance or lust or whatever. She's saying that they are after an emotional connection or some sort of emotional attachment. After all this, the goddess praises Jia Baoyu as being the most lustful, or maybe the most passionate person in the world. So why does the goddess praise him like this? Why does she say that? Well, it's because Jia Baoyu is not trying to hide his interest and his desires behind a facade. You see, that's what this whole thing is about. She mocks and she scolds the men who pretend to be morally pure and clean to hide their shame at their real desires, and praises Jia Baoyu for not hiding away anything. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Okay, let's take a look at how the other major English translations of Dream of the Red Chamber deal with this passage. David Hawkes writes this: every act of love, every carnal congress of the sexes is brought about precisely because sensual delight in beauty has kindled the feeling of love. And once again, David Hawkes misses the point. The point is not that men look at women, like what they see, and then fall in love. The point is that combination of physical desire and emotional desire. There's a reason why the goddess keeps bringing up the word qing. It's just kind of hard to translate, that's all. Gladys Young and her husband also gave it a try. Love of beauty leads to lust and desire even more so. Thus, every sexual transport of cloud and rain is the inevitable climax of love of beauty and desire. Okay, if any of that made sense to you, please let me know in the comments. I don't get it, and I've read it over and over again. I don't even know how that can relate to what it says in Chinese. Look, one of the problems with Dream of the Red Chamber is that the book is unmistakably Chinese. There are a ton of literary references like this peppered throughout the book. It drives translators nuts. The existing translations of this book are not awful, don't get me wrong on that. However, they really do need to do better than this. There's no way that we can have serious scholarly or literary discussions about this book unless we know what it actually says. Anyway, it's stuff like this that made me want to take on this translation project. It's a great learning experience for me, and it's amazing how many interesting things like this are hidden in this book.